Good afternoon from Vietnam, Alexandra. Thanks a lot for joining our Inside Sharing show and sharing your story to our audience. Thanks a lot for doing that in the early morning on the Monday uh, from your area. Okay.
Thank you very much for having me, Ha, and for reaching out. It's truly an honor. Vietnam was the first country I lived in over 24 years ago now,
Mm.
so it brings me way back, and it's I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you.
And I hope that through this conversation, somehow we're going to be able to bring you back to Vietnam sometime just for a visit. And if that happens, then you have me and my family here as new friends that we can take you around town. Okay, Vietnam has changed a
Thank you.
lot over the past 24 years, and
Yes, I bet it does. It did. Yeah.
Alexandra, in our culture, since you lived here already, it is great honor for our audience to have you introduce about who you are. Can you do that for us, please?
Yes, I can. So introducing myself shortly, right? So I'm Alexandra Hoffmann. I am French, and I live in France now after spending many years living abroad, including Vietnam. Um, I'm a mom of two. I'm an old mom of two. I've had my two kids quite late in my life because at first, I chose to focus on my career, and also I hadn't met the right person to have the kids, right? So I started working around right after Vietnam. Actually, I went back to France to study corporate security and moved to New York after that, also to deep dive into corporate security. And since 2001, I've been working in security and crisis management for companies ever since. Basically, that's been my job. Um, for 18 years, I was doing this for, as an employee at different levels of the company. I started as an intern and, moved my way up the ladder. And eventually I ended up as the head of resilience for Philips Lighting. That was back in 2017. And not long after that, I basically decided to launch my own company late 2018, early 2019, which is now Crisis Ally, and it's all focused on resilience. When I say resilience, it's really for the teams embedded in those organizations who deal with crisis management, incident management, day in and day out, because I was one of them for 18 years, and I know basically what type of job it is, and I know how hard it is. So I figured we were not provided the all the necessary tools to do our job at the time. So that's how I launched my company. Really, is to provide the tools that we basically don't give to the people working for mostly corporate sectors, I would say, right? But also, including people working for NGOs and public sector as well. So yeah, that's pretty much my career in a nutshell. Along the way, I've studied coaching and I've studied yoga because those two tools were very handy for my work, and today I use them all the time, whether it's overtly or covertly, right? So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Thank you, Han.
Wow. Thanks for sharing all about you in a nutshell for, for less than 3 minutes. So let us examine your journey all together. All right. So
Yes.
um, when I was young, let's start with a different version of Alexandra. Okay. So when I was young, I wanted to become an astronaut. Wearing the astronaut suit and jumping in different planet. It didn't happen, the way I wanted to be. And so, if when you were young, what did you dream about your future self and the works that you're gonna bring to the world?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. So when I was my son's age, who's turning 6 soon, I wanted to be either a florist
Florist?
selling flowers, or I wanted to be in the military.
Oh.
It was either or,
Uh-huh.
right? So it's interesting, right? Then I grew up, and my focus was on becoming a police officer back in France. And as a teenager already, I knew I wanted to become a police officer. And everything I studied from there on was to basically become a police officer in France. There's a certain path we have to follow to become a police officer, and in France, and that was just my objective. And my objectives changed when I traveled to Vietnam, but that's another story.
So, why is it that you want to become a police officer? What was that so fascinating for you, Alexandra?
Ooh, because I guess I like law and order, right? Yeah, something that really moves me is injustice, basically, right? So I strongly believe in the benefits of the law. Not all laws, don't get me wrong here. I'm not here to do politics, right? And mostly it's about protecting the people. It's about protecting the people, being hurt by people breaking the law, basically, right? So at the time when I was a teenager, I was really looking into helping with the drug trafficking and people also hurting, endangering women and children and things like this, right? So that was really what I wanted to do, but again, I've changed my focus and decided to protect the people of companies and big organizations since.
So what happened in Vietnam then?
Oh, it's not in Vietnam per se. It's just when I started traveling around the world, first with Vietnam and then in Hong Kong, where I spent a whole year. I realized I wanted to keep on traveling the world, basically, and not stop. And becoming a police officer, you become a civil servant, and you don't have the same freedom to move around and to basically build the career you want as you want it, because there are some constraints, because you basically have to follow what the government constraints, right? When you belong to it, right? Which is completely fair and it's normal, right? But I felt that I wanted to be completely autonomous in making those choices. And that's when I was in Vietnam, and then I decided to travel to Hong Kong, stayed in Hong Kong for an entire year, worked there. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna change, just moving from the public sector to the private sector. And also because 9/11 happened right when I was in Hong Kong, in the middle of those skyscrapers, right, in Hong Kong, you know how it is.
Yes.
And I was like, I want to protect those companies, and I want to protect the people working for those companies. So that's how I shifted, basically, from becoming a police officer to becoming a person working in corporate security.
And then how the journey as a security expert happened to you after that?
It was pretty smooth. It was pretty smooth. As you know, I'm pretty driven. As you can see, I'm pretty driven, right?
I can tell.
So, it's never. I've never had anything else in my mind. So once I had set my mind and my heart on becoming an expert in corporate security, I came back to France. I actually did a stopover in France to finish my French studies, okay, because my French studies hadn't been completed then. And I had this amazing opportunity to do a student exchange with John Jay College back in New York, which is specialized in criminal justice, corporate security, forensic psychology, all of these, I would say, security-related topics, right? So I actually took this opportunity and moved to New York to study 100% of the time corporate security for 2 years. And that's how I landed my first internship as an intern in corporate security with Avon. I believe you know Avon quite well. Yes. in Asia, right? And then I stayed with Avon for 3-4 years. And then after that, because I had been away for a long time. I wanted to go back home to France, and also the French government offered me a job. So this is when I moved back to France to work for the French government for a couple of years. And then after that, I basically went back to the corporate sector to, keep on working in corporate security with first Lafarge and then HP for 6 years, and then Philips Lighting all the way to now, basically. So the journey has been, I would say, pretty smooth, because I never wanted to do anything else. And also I worked really hard to achieve what I wanted, right? Going back, to just focusing on this, and putting I never considered that I would put my private life aside, because I had an amazing single life for many years, traveling the world. And I've traveled, in total I've lived in 4 countries and traveled to maybe 40 countries.
Wow.
So it's just, I love that, right? But so yeah, there it comes with, I think it comes with some choices to make. And then so yeah, the journey in corporate security was pretty smooth to me.
Wow. I have a question, because when people see crisis, a lot of us, we try to stay away from that. But then you are working toward it, heading to it, and then helping organization to plan, prepare, and deal with it if it happens, right? And and that job is relatively not a lot of our audience we know about that. So would you please tell us what is the job, that you work, you do for the clients, for your clients, Alessandra?
So you're asking me, how is it to work in incident or crisis management? That's what it is?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
I just want to make sure that I understand the question correctly. It's first of all, that's one thing I liked. One thing I like, and one thing I think I was also looking for when I wanted to become, whether I wanted to become a police officer, but also when I moved to corporate security, is not a single day is the same as the day before, basically. And I like that there is no routine, there is no monotony, basically, right? I like this for myself. I actually, yeah, it's so this is the number one thing. The describing this job is just, requiring to be super structured and agile at the same time.
Oh, structure and agile at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us more
You need
about
to be
that.
because you need to be able to make sense of the mess when it happens. So you need that mental structure, and also you need that structure internally, so you don't go crazy with the mess going on, right? So you need that structure, but at the same time, it's like when you raise kids, right? They need the structure, the frame, so that they can innovate and create in the frame. It's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing when you deal with incidents and crises of all sorts. So you need to be agile, because yes, you have the structure, you're kind of making sense of what's going on. You also have some, how do you call it? You have some structure, foundations that you have to do, right? Who you're gonna call, who you're gonna work with, how are you gonna communicate with each other, right? So these foundations are absolutely essential. That's also part of the structure, right? But at the same time, because every mess will be different from the previous one, you need to be agile to face the new one. And also, in my experience, regardless of all the plans and processes we've had in place, whether when I was an employee or even today now as a consulting company, it's never exactly, what's going on is never exactly what we had planned for. That's why this structure, but at the same time, this agility, flexibility, mental flexibility, right, is absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. Right?
Yep.
So this is how I like to describe what I do. It's also it can also be very time consuming, because you don't know what's going to happen. And most of the teams I know and I was part of, you can be long working hours, because incidents like to happen on Friday evening at 9 p.m., right? When you when it's the beginning of the weekend, and it's going to be messy and all that, right? So yeah, it can be hard work, nonstop as well, and I would say high visibility, not all the time, but in many times, because when something happens, even if it's not very often, it obviously can have an impact on the company, on the organization, right? So there's a huge focus on the crisis management team at this very moment. So being able to handle this as well is quite important.
Wow. Since your work deal a lot with preparing the crisis in advance, even if yet happening, so the team is ready for it when it's something happen, right? There's a lot of work involved with mental and physical preparations for that. So any incident can happen anytime. How can you how can you give yourself the strength to like to last in all that stress level over the 18 years now working on your own company, and then it's even, I think the stress level is even higher. How can you do that now?
Well, that's why I actually started practicing yoga at the time for myself, because I needed something to just recenter and recenter, right? And just stop for no matter the amount of time I would spend on my yoga mat. So doing this work for myself and trying to bring it to my team, to my coworkers. I remember, I think it was like 12 years ago, I had just had graduated as a yoga teacher, and we had a team meeting happening with the European EMEA team for the company I was working for. And I asked the director, I said, can I, during the team meeting, do you allow me to give a yoga class? Because I think it would be very valuable to everyone. And it was great, because I mean, the security job is now, it's changing, step by step. But until very recently, the security job was mostly made of men, right? So at the time in this team, I don't want to make any mistake. It may have been one or two more women, but yeah, maybe there was like 10% women. The rest was men. So I actually gave that yoga class to the team, to the EMEA team, and it's great to see those colleagues, male colleagues, just letting go at the beginning, just giggling and just laughing because they were a bit uncomfortable, right?
Yep.
And eventually, at the end of the hour, one or two of them had fallen asleep. So I was so happy about that, right? And till today, I know that a couple of them are still practicing yoga.
Wow.
Since that class, right? So yeah, I think whether it's yoga or anything else, I think the key when we do that job is to find something to just vent, right? To not keep it all inside. Venting is just getting rid of the stress, getting rid of the I would say the super intense energy that's required to deal with this job, right? The thing is, it's not something we learn at school, not in Western countries, and it's certainly not something we learn at universities or business schools or whatever. So when we become corporate employees, right? I feel we don't have the tools to do this. So unless we just do that work individually, personally, so today I try to also help the teams which I work with focus, yes, on the structure that I talked about at the beginning, but also focus on this mental and human agility that's so needed to this job and to go through life, right? I don't have all the studies here in mind, but the what, especially with what's happened with the COVID, the burnout and people being completely demotivated for all kinds of reasons. We can't just simply consider people like machines.
Yep.
And too often this is the case. So I'm trying to help in that sense, basically, and especially for my peers, I'm not, the aim with my company is not to be like HR focused. If I have to find a silo, right? I'm really focusing on those crisis leaders and crisis management teams to help them do their jobs, basically.
Wow. And earlier you also saying that, you have to do the job in a very structural way. At the same time, has to be very agile in the way that you seeing it and doing that. And to me, these two skills are not normally not seen in a good in a lot of people, because if you I'm a structured person, I'm really structured, then think agile is not something that I'm gonna be very good at. So, Alexandra, how can you build both of that seems to be contradict skills and then combine into the very beautiful way? Can you share the secrets with our audience, please?
I don't know if there's any secrets to that. Wow, it's I would say just it's daily work. It's daily work. Even sometimes, I catch myself not being agile and flexible enough, and being too stubborn, right? Too focused on my plans, and too focused on my framework, and too focused on my objectives. Let me say here, I think there's a big lie going around that we can just plan for everything, right? And it's not possible.
Yep.
I know it'd be great if we could. I'd love to prevent my kids from being hurt their entire life. I'd love to prevent myself from being hurt, and my business from having those ups and downs. But it's not possible. So I think, to be honest with you, I think it's just part of the life journey that we're all on, as long as we're alive, right? And it's just daily work. It's daily work for myself as well. But it's hard because it's so comfortable being in our structures, right? It's so comfortable being in our foundation, surrounded by our foundations. Also, it's easier to sell that we build a framework, that we'll build a process, that we build all kinds of plans. It's easier to sell. It's like hard work that we can show right away, like whether it's 10 pages or 3 or 4 documents that we've worked on for the past 12 months, right? That's something super tangible that we can deliver, right?
Yep.
And that's necessary. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that's not enough. Saying that's enough is a lie. It's not enough. That's why we have to work on this agility piece, which requires. This is what I was actually delivering a workshop last week to a client, and I say, this is the hard part. Working on this agility piece is the hard part because it's completely intangible.
It is.
It's purely related to us as individuals and us collectively as a team. And it's something we have to keep in the back of our head all the time. During the workshop, one of the attendees was saying, yes, it's hard to manage a crisis, especially because crises happen out of the blue. And sometimes you may be sitting with a person in a meeting and you basically have issues or unsolved conflicts for BAU stuff, business as usual work, right? And then after that, 1 hour later, you have to sit down with them and fix a crisis or an incident. And it's hard to set aside and resolve conflicts. Yes, it's hard, but we have to. if we want to serve the company we work for, if we want to serve and do what's right for the crisis team, we have to be able to, as an individual, set those unresolved conflicts aside and say, okay, let's focus on this because we know what we're doing this, we know what our purpose is, we know what our vision is for the company we're serving, the organization we're serving, and let's just recollect, right? And focus on this, right? So there are all kinds of things that individuals and teams can do, like focusing on the purpose and the sense and the meaning of what they're doing, accepting things, accepting and making sure that they work on what they can control and influence and not the rest, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's little bits and pieces here that I'm sharing to work on this agility aspect of the job. But again, the structure is essential. And actually, something I haven't said, when I work with my clients, I actually encourage them as much as possible to go back to this foundational work, the structure. What's their strategy? What's their vision? What do they want to achieve? Because each company is different. Each team, crisis response team, is different, right? So what do they want to achieve? Then we can move on to say, okay, let's train us as well to be very agile, to be very adaptable, to be nimble, basically, to have a nimble way of going through those events.
So the structure is the foundation that they need to be mastered, and then along the way build the agility, so that you can create a different path throughout the structure. Am I understand it correctly?
This is exactly it. At the beginning, I was comparing this to educating kids, and it's exactly the same as building a house. We build a house by putting the foundation on the ground first, then we put the walls, then we put the roof. Then inside the house, we're free to do whatever. If we just want to keep one room, we keep one room. If we want to have 30 rooms in a 50 square meter house, we have 30 rooms. If we want to have 3, and put the kitchen instead of the bathroom, whatever it is, right? And we can change this as needed, right? But the thing is, it's so this structure is being super clear on the vision, and something also that's something crisis management team and leadership always set aside because we think it's obvious. It's never obvious.
Never.
When I was head of resilience, I took the time to go one leader by one leader, meet them one by one at the company to understand what the definition of resilience was. They all had a different definition of resilience. Each of them.
Wow.
So me, as the head of resilience, where does that put me? What am I supposed to do when you see that the executive committee members have a different definition of resilience by themselves? So just lining this up at first, and because of course I can come with my definition and pound them and say, yeah, this is how it is. But if I'm not here, if I'm not able to understand how they see it, how they visualize it, right? Me coming in and say this is the way to do it, I don't think that works. And one of my known skills is to influence people, and I think I'm good at influencing people because I don't force them to do things. So you know what I'm saying?
I understand, yes. And we have a lot of experts joining our program from different backgrounds, and they have different kind of definition for resiliences also. So since you're an expert in the crisis management field, what is your definition of resilience though?
So I apply resilience just to my sector, but it's very much forward the same as, I think it's not the same. I would say it's very much connected to other resilience definitions I've read, right? Whether it's in nature, whether it's in physics, whether it's in HR. Let me go one step back.
Yep.
In my work, in security, the way we typically do it, because we work for mostly corporate organizations, let's focus on those private companies, okay? Small, big, or medium, doesn't matter, but they all work in silos. They have finance department, HR department, communications department, security department, and all that, okay? Those silos have been extremely necessary for very, very obvious reasons, in the industrial area. The thing is, my learnings along the way was that when we deal with an incident or crisis, we have to gather those different people from different silos around a table, or whether the table is live, in real life, or virtual, right? It doesn't matter. We have to gather the people working in different silos around the table, okay? The thing is, if those silos are so tight that we barely speak to each other, or we barely know each other, when things go south, it's going to be hard to basically work smoothly, right?
Yep.
Because when the incident happens, now is not the time to start getting to know each other. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
So when I launched my business late 2018, early 2019, I figured it's not about security. It's not about risk management. It's not about crisis management or business continuity. It's about resilience. I.e., I see resilience as a big umbrella above an organization where all those silos fall under. And each part has a responsibility and a duty to play so that the organization and company is resilient. And to me, being resilient, going back to your question, it's not about moving, it's not about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. Because one of the lies as well is, when there was the COVID, I don't know if you heard that back in Vietnam, but the big thing here was about back to normal, right?
Yep.
I don't know what it means to be back to normal, because when there was a crisis or an incident, we still have a memory, we still have brains. We just can't scrap the past like this, right? We can't just erase experiences. So talking about being back to normal means nothing, absolutely nothing. And then they went on to talk about the new normal. What is the new normal? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm all about bouncing forward, just being focused on the present and the future, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
If you bring this to the personal level, or no, let's stick to business, okay? Let's stick to business. I mean, many companies in France and abroad have actually had to shut down because of the COVID, right?
Yes.
So what is it? What does it mean to talk about business back to normal or new normal? You know what I'm saying? It's just, instead of that, let's talk about being resilient, build something new, create something new, innovate, find a new opportunity, right? So bouncing forward.
Yep.
That's how I see it. It doesn't mean that it's easy. That's my take on this as well. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that we're not going to go through rough and emotions and ups and downs, but it's about, looking forward, basically. And yeah. So it's going to be very much connected to those definitions in other fields. But in my sector, it's absolutely critical, because trust me, in my industry, we have people working in risk management, people working in security, people working in crisis management, working in business continuity. One big mistake is that now a lot of my peers working in business continuity alone decided that resilience is a synonym of business continuity, which is a huge mistake, because it's not. Resilience is above everything else. Business continuity is a tool to help the company bounce forward.
Bounce forward.
That's how I see it, basically.
Thanks for bringing it up, bouncing forward, and thanks for also bring the back to normal and the new normal up again. I don't even believe, in those fancy words of normal, because it's the world is no longer the same. Things that we
What is
experience.
normal?
Yeah.
That's the thing. What is normal to me? I just want to share that story. I've been working remotely for 15 years already.
Mm.
So of course, being in lockdown was not normal to me. Okay, it was, you know, but working remotely was normal, my normality for many years, because I always had regional roles and global roles, so I could basically work from anywhere, right? I've never been part of a crisis management team, sitting around the same physical table, and once in my entire life. We always managed incident and crisis with the phone, with WhatsApp, with emails, nothing else. That was my normality for 15 years. So what's normal? And so let's
Alessandra, I want to bring you to one critical point in your life, and that is late 2018, early 2019, and that is the moment that you create your company. You founded Crisis Ally, and a lot of my friends are executive by the time they got to a retiring age. One of the regrets that they had was not starting their company earlier. All right, and you've been in the industry for long. You tend to be within what you've been doing with everything is already well structured, right? And with a lot of comfort. At the end of the month, you got the paycheck done. You got the and like the benefits, other benefits, the insurance cover for not only for you, for the family and stuff like that, right? And because of that comfort, a lot of us didn't walk out of that. So I want to bring that entrepreneur spirits up, because at that moment you decided to go solo. What happened?
I guess I got crazy. A few things. Number one, the one thing I just discussed, the too many silos in the companies, not one company, all the companies. Okay, too many silos. I was done with that, and I wanted to see and do something differently. Okay, and this was in the back of my head for many years before I took that leap of faith. It's not like one morning I wake up and say, "Oh, I'm going to set up my business." It's something that was in the back of my head for many years, like trying, wanting something different. And for the job I was doing, basically. Okay. Another thing that happened is I became a mom late 2016 and returned to work after a long maternity leave. That was early 2017. I worked for another year and a half, and I still had to travel, and I didn't want that anymore. And I had spent 20 years traveling around the world, and I basically wanted to spend time with my baby. That was really simple. So I was like, okay, I have to find a way to build myself a life that makes me travel less. Okay. So I had some professional opinions that I wanted to focus on, and personal goals that I wanted to achieve. Okay. And last but not least, after Philips Lighting, something I don't share on LinkedIn and doesn't share much because if there's not much point, but I'm going to share it here. After Philips Lighting, I actually had an opportunity to be to have a change of career. Okay, I was hired to become the head of university at a big company. Head of university. It's because it's basically I was responsible for the learnings of the employees around that company, and I was very interested in that role because when we do security and crisis management, we spend our time training and making people aware of what we do, because most people don't understand what we do. Most people don't know what we do, yet we need them to achieve what we need, right? So learning, training, awareness is a huge deal in our job. So when I was offered the opportunity to become a head of university, that's when I left Philips Lighting. Okay, but this job opportunity was a major fail, major fail. There was no cultural connection between the company and myself, between myself and the team. It didn't work out at all. And I basically stayed there for just a couple of months, just 3 months. And then after that, I was like, you know what? That's the sign I was waiting for. I'm not gonna go back to something I've been tired of. I'm just gonna do it now, build my company, and do what I know, and just focus on my vision. So those three elements coming together, right? My professional vision, personal goals, and this professional failure, which I'm completely fine with, right? A failure is a failure. I have successes that I can talk about, but this was a major failure. I was like, you know what? That's the opportunity I'm supposed to use to do something different, to bounce forward, basically, right? Going back to what we were talking about before.
And thanks for sharing.
That's how
that. Thanks for sharing that, Alexandra. I think that sometimes because of the failures even make us feel stronger in the mission that we want to bring forward. Like in your case, you want to bring the framework of resilience as a whole umbrella for the organizations, because the silo is there, it's huge, it's big, it sticks, and it's not gonna move, or change. It's not changing much over the years, right? And even if we build resilient within the silo, it's make the silo even stickier, and be there even longer and not breakable. So if we see the resilient as a top of the organization and the umbrella that cover all the silos within that, and how we as a team, department to department, and then functional to functional, can create a joint resilient, then the organization can always bow forward really strong. And that is what will create a lot of change for the employees and the needs of those organizations, because now we share a common purpose, working toward a common vision, instead of follow the leaders that create politics, creates stuff here and there that stop the engine from going, from going bouncing forward. So thanks for doing that. And today I'm learning a new terminology. I really enjoy it, and I think that's also expanding our audience the definition of resilience. And it's the first time that I heard about that, resilient as the umbrella for the whole organization. And I believe the fundamental that you share, that you do also, Alexandra. I have two last questions for you for the conversation today. All right.
Tell me.
The first one is about thinking. So my wife and I are in the quest of helping people to think, to improve their ability to think, because we believe that our ability to think these days actually declining. It's not increasing. So every chance that we talk to people who works involve a lot of thinking, like your works requires you to do a lot of thinking. Can you tell us the secret of how you helping yourself to expand your ability to think, Alessandra?
So, listening to podcasts,
Okay.
reading
Uh-huh.
books, articles, studies, whatever comes my way, because it's a necessity. And it's crazy because since I've become a business owner, when you are a business owner, you have to stay in touch with the latest trends. When I say the latest trends, no, you have to stay in touch with the future trends, right? So you have to every day eat, I would say, information, right? Whatever it is, but from podcast, audio, or watching videos or reading books, because otherwise you're out of touch for the clients. And also, I believe part of my work is to bring some innovative tools and ideas as well to my clients. Okay, and I've come to realize how much information I had missed when I was running operations before as an employee, when I had no time because I was stuck in meetings back to back, and I was stuck traveling all the time, and doing my operational work all the time. Never took the time to spend so much time reading and nourishing my brain and my soul with that content, which is a huge mistake. Yep. Because now I'm learning so many things. So just setting some time apart, ideally daily, when it becomes a routine, you don't even think about it. It's just you just do it. You subscribe to, especially today, it's so easy. You subscribe to newsletters, right? That you actually like, you find useful. You just screen through it and see what's interesting, what's relevant, and it doesn't mean that we have to. I don't actually highlight everything I read, right? It's just screening through things, and especially when it comes because it's about my stuff about my expertise, or I expand also by reading and listening to other article and content from marketing and comms and HR, because also as a business owner I also have to feed myself with not only expert content but also business content, right? Yep. So it just comes naturally. It's part of the daily routine, basically, to expand my thinking and my way of seeing things, right? It's absolutely critical. Otherwise, first of all, I'm super bored if I don't do this. But also, I think my business is not going to last long if I'm not able to bring new ideas like this on a regular basis.
Yep. So right? It has to be time involved and intentionally to to learn and to expand. Yeah. So reading.
And it's also what we're doing right now. It's building a network, and now when we know that what people are interested in, we share with each other the content. That I'm thinking about this because the other day one of our peers from Australia sent me 2 studies. He said, "I think you're gonna like those studies and about resilience." So he sent them to me by email. So it's once people see that you like nourishing your brain and soul like this, it's easy. You just network and feed from each other, right?
Yep, absolutely. Because I think the people always have a good intention to help to be helpful. So if I came across something that maybe good for a friend or so, definitely I pass the message. I would say, hey Alexandra, I read this in a beautiful article. Yep. Maybe you will enjoy reading it, and vice versa. So, and thanks for sharing the secret of your your works that force you to that help you to expand your ability to think. And definitely there's a if our audience out there, if they want to like learn from the tips from you, definitely they need to put time in. They have to have intentional expand the networks so that they can have and then read and listen to good information every day that can get into their like the head, right?
And I'd like to add one thing that people can hear from what you were summarizing, but I want to say it intentionally because I didn't mention it very, very clearly. The idea is also to feed myself from people who are also very different from me. Absolutely. So I'm not only, like I said before, I'm not only reading things about my work, I'm reading things and listening, and that's also why I was super interested in doing this recording with you, because we don't come from the same industry, and that's what I love. I wanted to see where this conversation would lead us, right? Yep. So I'm also feeding myself from this conversation because you're so different. You're from Vietnam as well, and from France, and you don't do the same job as I do, and that's also what it is. Expanding intellectually and personally is about also making sure that hold on, I have to stop this. Making sure that I'm constantly conscious of the people I'm speaking with.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. There's so much to learn from a stranger, right? Somebody we don't know.
Yes.
And then that's also I always enjoy talking to the people that I never met in my life too. On a daily basis, if I take my daughter to school or so, I would talk to somebody on the way, there, just to if a message that we can be nice to them, and can lighten the day, it's already good already. And then we receive a lot more in returns also by talking
Yeah.
to them also. All right, Alessandra, I'll go to the last question, and this again is going to be about you. So we know your past already. You want to be, you want to be a florist, then want to become a policeman, and then when you came to Vietnam, the journey changed a bit here and there, and then you get into become expert in crisis management, and you found your own company to help put your message, forward your way, and I want to congratulate you for doing that, because now is no
Thank you.
boundaries, everything is you creating your own ways of bouncing forward, heading to the future your way, right? So we want to know if there is anything exciting Alexandra Hoffman is doing or about to be doing, and you want us to celebrate with you in advance. Is there anything you want to share with us?
So I've already actually it's a great question. One thing I've actually started for the first time last week, and I'm so excited about this, is teaching to students at university. So I started doing this last week for the first time, and that was a big objective of mine ever since I started doing my job, basically. So I'm hoping to expand on this, as not too much, because I want to keep space for my business, right? But I'm loving the opportunity to address students and to learn from them, and to basically share with them some tools I wish I had at the time when I was a student myself. And the other thing is, no, there are other things coming up, but I don't want to jinx them. So until it's out, I'm like, no, let's. But there will be more things coming up, and brilliant partnerships to come. So which I'm super excited about. But again, it's. I'm a bit superstitious in that sense. I don't want to jinx it. So let me do the work, and once it's there, I'll share it with the world. Please. But yeah, again, going back to teaching with the kids, when I say kids, students, the young students in university, to give them those tools. I'm super immensely grateful about this. It's again, I'm hoping I can expand on this because it's so critical. I think when we arrive in companies, whatever job, to do whatever job, sometimes we're so lost. So being lost is also part of the journey, right? But I think we could be taught more tools to be more conscious about what we're doing, how we're dealing with work, and how we are entering the market, the work market, right? And all of this. So yeah, it's great.
Wonderful, and I think teaching is one of the best way that we can help the next generations to equip them, so we become enabler, and then they can become multiplier themselves in the future. So thanks for doing that, Alexandra. I wish you all the best at what you do, and whatever that you are about to do, I wish it to be a success. All right, and I want you to be happy, because when you're happy, you're gonna build a lot of people be more resilient and bouncing the future forward, and that's what we want.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Had. I really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'll be back anytime in the future when you need, and anything you need, you just let me know. Really, I really enjoyed being back in Vietnam for just an hour.
And bring your kids and your boys to Vietnam too, all right?
Exactly. Yes.
It's me who need to say thank you. So thanks a lot for spending your morning with me and the audience of the show. It's very kind of you, very generous of you. We learn a lot from your works, and we really admire that. So keep doing that. You go.
Thank you so much, Ha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, my friend.
Bye bye. Take care.
Take care.